Thank you very much, Vijay, for giving us the time and also being committed to sharing some of your perspectives, right? I mean, there's been a journey for you from, playing different roles, and today as a master certified executive coach. So I'm sure there are some wonderful perspectives and experiences you can share with us. So I'm grateful for the time, Vijay.
Sure, my pleasure entirely, Shri Priya. Really looking forward to this chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I have a few questions outlined for you, Vijay, and I know that you'll be the right person to answer this first one, which is to say you wear multiple hats, Vijay. And once it's starting from your education in law to moving to HR, and then being an executive coach, a master certified executive coach from a career front. And I'm sure you wear multiple hats in the personal front too, right? And one that I am aware of from what I know of you is a fitness enthusiast. So all of this basically takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, enthusiasm, and a lot of inner drive to carry on. How do you take care of yourself, Vijay, at multiple levels so that you are able to do all that you want to do and continue making others great?
Thank you, Shri Priya. I don't know whether I have a perfect answer for this because I think it's pretty much work in progress. But you're right. I think one of the things, being somebody with a certain amount of multiplicity, multiple interests, I would say, is the fact that you need to know sort of how to, tone up and tone down at various points of times.
Correct.
So, for example, yes, I do love all things fitness. I mean, I've grown up on a lot of sport, and genuinely my happiest place is, when I play or, when I train or something. But I also know, and I think that's where over the years, I think that appreciation has come in, saying that, it's very easy to get obsessive about something. And also when you get into something, there's a lot of expectation from everybody else in some ways, right? Whatever role you're playing. But only inside, when the clock needs to stop, right? We just take a pause.
Correct.
So I think taking a lot of pauses, resetting, and you'll never be able to explain that to anybody else. But I think keeping that inner rhythm intact is very important. And one rule of thumb for me is whenever I'm really not enjoying something too much, and in fact, you didn't ask me this, but one of the reasons why it seems like I have my hand into quite a few things is simply because actually I love all of that. Right? And I do it because it just gives me joy. It just feels very natural for me to do it. So I think it's important whenever it starts getting unnatural, whenever it seems like you're not playing for yourself but for the gallery or otherwise, right? You're playing because you think you should be. I think it's good to just stop, take a pause, and really reset yourself. And believe me, I think if if that interest is real, it'll come back. You can't sort of keep it lying in the back burner for too long.
Correct.
So I think I do that, resets, pauses, and really listening to my inner voice, Shri Priya.
Correct. But sometimes they say these inner voices can be demons too, right? How do you handle your demons?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think when I kind of get very critical, and that's also been a evolution and a journey. So I think, and I'm sure you also as a coach would relate to this, when we are working and we see that process of growth with others, we also realize what's happening within our own selves, right? As we go through our own, milestones in the growth journey.
Correct.
And sometimes when, you do get super critical or, those voices are sort of not serving you. I think I like to have that dialogue and, say, hey, let's sort this out now. Right. I don't like to sort of continue that. So there again, when I feel discomfort or when I feel something pulling me down, and that's not the outside world, it's myself, I really sit and have that, bit of self-conversation or that self-coaching to say, what is happening here? Right? Are my fears unfounded or absolutely valid? And if it is, and sometimes those demons are right, Shripriya, and it's really important to embrace that also, because that's also part of you.
Correct.
I think that really helps, the breaking it down, as difficult as it is, especially when you're kind of caught, is so important.
Absolutely. Well said. And I also like the point that you said earlier, where you said there's nothing like if you take a pause, you need to worry, because if it has to come back, it will come back, right? And that's the universal law. So what you have to do, you'll do it. But only thing is, it's a matter of time. I mean, when you do it, right? So that's really good. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So the other area, Vijay, is that you are someone whom many people look up to. As a role model for many people, how do you increase your deservability in your own eyes?
Yeah, this again is a tough one, actually, because Shripriya, I want to go back a little bit to my own life journey.
Sure.
Right. I think I was very fortunate, even though we had, absolutely, I would say the 1980s kind of middle class Indian upbringing. And obviously our exposure was limited and things like that. But I think I've been very fortunate in having an ecosystem, right? Whether it was my parents, grandparents, who, absolutely, have never had us feeling that, hey, you don't deserve this or that, or, this is for so and so. Obviously we knew certain things were very hard, very difficult, but I think nothing was sort of out of reach. And when you are in that kind of an environment, you sometimes even very, with a lot of being very naive, you think everything is possible. I remember when I was, maybe all of 9 or 10, where I thought I would, I could dream to be, the prime minister of the country, right?
Correct.
And I actually had that for a while. For a while, I would say I want to just be, in politics. Right? I mean, little did we know, how much stuff that went on there. But I'm just saying, so I think deservability was never consciously ever there, right? The question, do I deserve it? But what's interesting is, as again, you'd understand, when we go through socialization, right? When we kind of go through various different lives, high school, college, everything else, right? The roles we play. I think society plays a huge role in putting narratives into your head. Saying, am I too young? Am I good enough? Am I educated enough? Am I, all those questions, right? When they don't really have to. Those are all cognitive questions. And I think when you look at deservability in general, one way, at least I have felt that, whatever I've got or whatever I have been or achieved or blessed with, is something I do deserve. I've never felt the imposter syndrome, but I think it's not been natural, right? It takes work, because again, like you said, the demons come back. And, I remember when I got my, Master Certified Coach credential, I was perhaps one of the youngest. And, I've had some clients actually tell me, you look too young to be, a master coach, or even a coach for that matter. And that's when you actually wonder, right? Because in coach training and otherwise, that age or even experience for that matter are not the most critical things. But the voices all around you kind of say that. So again, I think it's very important to write your own script. And that's what I would say. You started off by saying a lot of people consider you a role model. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but I believe if you're in a position of influence in whatever way, right? Then you use your voice for good, you use your influence for good. So through that, I would really like to say to anybody, right? I mean, who wants to know or follows me or whatever, that just write your own script. Who says that, you need A, B, or C to, be let's say, a great HR leader, or, a great coach, or even a great parent for that matter. Right? You write your own script. So I think writing my own script has helped me, even if it was not something that I've grappled with. There have been times, and I must be honest, when the demon and those voices would come to, I think, deal with that. And today feel congruent that wherever I am, whatever I am, is something I'm worthy of.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a good way to train yourself to get what you deserve, right? Rather than saying boundaries do not matter what the society puts to you, but it's about how I navigate the environment and how I speak to myself to say what is true and important for me, right? That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Now, it also tells me that, like, when we go through all these complexities, there is sometimes we need to loosen up, and that's a very difficult aspect for most human beings, and more so for women, because we're very tough and critical on ourselves. So how do you kind of bring out that inner child in you always, Vijay?
Oh, that's a lovely question. And why? Because, I think it's just so important in life, isn't it? Because before you realize it, you'll be 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 and, time flies by.
Correct.
Sometimes I look back and I say, hey, could I go back, and live a day in my 20s, or could I relive it? Fact is, you can't. So I think it's very important, however old you are or not, to just sort of not get weighed down by all that responsibility and age and experience that kind of comes. And I think just take yourself for who you are, Supriya. So for example, I love sort of, whether it's eating cotton candy or going on merry-go-rounds or, just sort of getting wet in the rain, jumping in. I mean, these are all things I just so enjoy. And I think it's important not to shut those down, right? Again, society telling you that, hey, you are so-and-so now, you're a parent now, you're so-and-so now. So you don't do, a couple of things. But the moment you don't do that, you lose touch with yourself. All of us have a basic core, right? And there's a core that keeps us alive. I mean, I know, Supriya, I mean, for you, that may be dance. For me, it's just, saying, anybody says, hey, who's ready to play the game? I am, right? Correct. So how does it matter who's watching or, whether you're going to be the most terrible player? Correct. You do it because it keeps you alive. So I think the inner child for me is to do those things that just make me feel alive.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Otherwise you'll realize that you have just become so old and jaded, even in your own eyes.
Correct. And that's important. How we look at ourselves through our own eyes is more important than how the rest of the world looks at us, right? So it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that helps us to stand up to who we are, what causes we represent, even to align to our passion, etc. Right?
Yeah.
We need to, truly connect with ourselves. That's very well said, Vijay. Now, there's also another aspect that I wanted to check with you. One is to say, you're in the space of making others great. I mean, as an executive coach, you're acting as a change catalyst almost in every conversation that you are in. So what is one actionable change that you have done in your life that has helped you to reach where you are today?
So I'd like to maybe talk about two things, Shripriya. Maybe they're just one, right? So let me start and share.
Sure.
So I think, all of my life, I've been driven very much by performance, right? I mean, and like I said, 80s, 70s, 80s kid growing up, in India, competition and competitiveness are something that, you have to get used to. You have to thrive in, right? I mean, and resources, now things are quite different. Though I'm saying my children will not agree with that, but I feel at least there are more options, choices. So when you get, when you're part of one such an environment, it's very easy to become very driven, very particular about performance, not letting chances go, sort of touch and become gold, those kind of things. So you also land up being very hard on yourself. But I think one of the most beautiful things I've learned, not just in my work with clients, Supriya, as a coach, but even earlier, through my days as a corporate leader or management consulting, or I would even say life, right? I mean, my roles of being a mother, being a daughter, and all those things, right? Being a partner. So I think you realize that performance and, the goal itself has meaning only in a larger context. So my biggest learning has been that the journey is far more important than the destination. And when you focus on the journey, and really going back to what you said, right, being in touch with your inner child, doing what keeps you alive and doing the right things, standing for those causes, 9 out of 10 times, you will actually outshine your results.
Correct.
And that's the beauty of the coaching process also, right? We're not necessarily coaching somebody for a very strict outcome. It's more the journey, who that person is becoming in that journey. And most people would say that, hey, I wanted this, but I've actually landed up doing this and that.
Correct.
So that's been a huge one for me, saying, being, having played professional sports is very difficult because you are judged on your end result.
Correct.
It doesn't matter, right? I mean, you got to win that match. You got to win the tournament. Nobody really cares whether you enjoyed your game or no. But that's on, that's on the sports field. Maybe that's still true for people who do that professionally. But I think for everybody else, life is a far bigger game where you need to enjoy that game. Yeah. So I think that's been a big one. And building on that is also a sense of, a bit of detachment.
Okay.
Saying that, okay, it's fine if, this does not happen, or something did not go your way, or, something, life did not go as per your plan. Life never goes according to your plans, right? Life is always what's happening to you and you're busy making other plans. Right. But sometimes life doesn't go according to plans. So what happens when everything goes out of script? I think it's important, at least for me, developing that little bit of detachment. That does not mean to say that, I don't care, or, I've given up, or, it doesn't matter. It of course matters. But if you don't hit bullseye, it's totally okay to come back to the playing, back to the, bench, reset, go back, and not be so attached. And so I think these two things have really helped me reframe my own leadership and life journey as well, Shripriya.
Correct. No, this is absolutely important. And when you said a performance-oriented lens that you've been groomed to, and now you said that that's okay to come out of it, and then the ability to kind of keep a detached attachment to things, right? It seems. It's quite understandable, but sometimes while doing it, right, many people struggle and they fall prey to once again the demons. Now, how do you go about? What's your transition there? I mean, was there something that you did consciously that helped you, or was there some? What's the magic there that helped you to say this more confidently today, Vijay?
Yeah, no, actually, it's perhaps the first time I'm saying it like this. But so thank you, Shripriya. I think sometimes the right environment and the conversation allows you to do that.
Correct.
But yeah, I'm not really sure, Shripriya. I think it's just various experiences of failure, quote unquote.
Good.
Maybe small, maybe it's also that sometimes you realize, and that's another lesson, you realize that life is unfair. Yeah. I grew up believing that life is fair. Yeah. But that's the nature of the universe. Okay. Things will be unfair, but can you still sort of persevere? And so I think developing that muscle of resilience became very important to do that. Right. Because you're right. It's not, easy to, in that moment, right, when you're not sort of getting what you worked so hard for, or things were unfair, or simply that your performance was not good enough, at that moment, I'd be lying if I said, right, I was blissful. No, it does hurt. It does sort of, prick you a little bit, if not a lot.
Correct.
But I think the important thing is to go back with resilience and not lose that ability to say, hey, let me try another time. Right? So I think, introspection on some of these things that did not go your way. So I always think that, in life, while successes are great, and I think it's very important to build your confidence.
Correct.
I won't call it failures, but, not succeeding at that point of time is equally important, because it really opens a lot of other doors.
Correct.
And to tap into your own inner wisdom and resilience. So I think resilience, is a muscle that I have developed in the last couple of decades. And, I wouldn't say that I orchestrated that. It was life, and life gives you lemons, you make lemon juice, right?
Correct.
So,
correct. How does your focus on body, which is like, I see you very conscious, and you're also motivating others from whatever I see in the social media. But so has that helped you to build this resilience muscle, Vijay?
Oh, it's really intuitive of you to pick that up, Shripriya. I would think yes. And I would also say that when one neglects it, the body is one of those guys who tells you in your face, hey, sorry, I'm out. And it can be terrible. And, anybody who has gone through some kind of a health scare, or, a situation where you've seen loss because of health, etc., you would realize that, the body is a high maintenance thing, right? You got to constantly sort of keep it and take good care of it. So certainly, I think in the last couple of years, I have become far more mindful. So yes, I also, I'm a professional wellness coach, but, and people say, oh, you're a wellness coach, so you must be all sorted. That's far from the truth, right? We coaches, and, even if you're a wellness coach or any other coach, you're as human as everybody else.
Correct.
But I've realized that when you do take care, so, I say this, and maybe you can relate to it. So even in the coaching room, right, when you come into the session, it's not just though you're not doing a physical job, it's not just your mind, it's not just, your intelligence, or, I would say your presence at that point of time that makes a difference. Your body plays a huge role. Right. Because you need to feel good. You need to feel that energy, right? You need to be able to sustain through those, an hour of really holding space for another human being. So I think it's really important to take care. And I would say, even when I talk about the body, some of the aspects I've been very particular about is, trying to focus on not just, let's say, looking a certain way. Of course, I think that's an outcome. But I think more importantly on things like mobility and, flexibility, agility, because these are also the things that actually, when you're present in coaching, you need to be. So I think the body plays a huge role in your profession. Correct. And obviously you can see me sort of getting all energized, but I if I could say something to my younger self, it would be that, saying that, maybe you could have taken even more care. Because when you're in your 20s, or let's say even early 30s, you take it for granted, right? You are in the, heady journey of doing well in your corporate career, and, so many other things are important. And we just take our bodies for granted, right? But I think as you age, you realize what he needs: more care, more maintenance, more love, if I may.
Correct.
So important to love your body.
Correct. And that's absolutely right. You need to build that vertical coherence between your body, heart, mind, and soul. I think that's important. And as an executive coach, you're actually transpiring that confidence so that the other person, like they say, there's a lot of neuroscience that plays, right? There's mirror neurons, and people are actually observing you, and you need to give that confidence. And it just doesn't come from a very bold streak of, it doesn't come just from the mind, it starts from the body.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, Vijay, you actually work with so many leaders as an executive coach, and you would have seen a lot of them, navigate complexities. Now, I mean, what would you, call out as critical aspects or critical elements for people to navigate the complexities of, there's work, there is life, and you need to build an integration. It's not just, it's two separate elements. They're actually one along with the other together. Now, how have you, observed other leaders do it, and what would you call out as critical elements for others to imbibe, Vijay?
Thanks, Shri Priya. And, I must say that one of the things that's so wonderful about my job is I get to meet such phenomenal human beings who are all working on being better versions of themselves.
Correct.
So if I were to, look at some learnings from there and also from my own leadership journey, I would say the starting point is congruence, right? And I think to build congruence, because see, we're all just one person, right? And going back to your earlier questions, we're assuming so many roles. We're assuming the role of a parent, a spouse, a head of a family, a head of an organization, and then so many other social roles. And it's hard sort of wearing so many hats unless you're actually operating from your source, right? Which gives you that congruence. So I would say people who have been able to deeply understand themselves as to why they are in a certain way, what are their drivers, their likes, dislikes, behaviors, and just sort of figure yourself out first. That sets a huge, huge foundation to be a very good leader. And most times that's neglected. Right. Because again, we are so busy, doing external things. We're taking care of our people. We're doing all that. I sometimes, very senior leaders, when you ask them, a question in coaching saying, so what is it that, are you most passionate about? It takes a couple of minutes for them to, it's not that they don't know, but they've just lost that touch with themselves. So I think one is having that, deep inner wisdom and really understanding yourself. Because unless you understand yourself, you cannot, make a difference in this world or with others. Right. Second thing, which I can't, really underplay, is purpose. And I think that hugely helps in building congruence when you know your own why for your life, right? Right. What was I born for? What am I here for? What is the difference I'm going to make? What do I want to be, in this lifespan? And then when you have that purpose, right, that purpose shows up whether, you are at work or whether you're outside or in some other role. So I think the purpose kind of drives you through everything, right? So then you don't have to worry about work-life balance or anything because the purpose drives you. You know, why you're doing something. And also then you start making choices, right? And a lot of, mid-career executives who I work with, because in addition to executive coaching, I work with private clients really to help them navigate their own careers. One of the things they say is, when I know my purpose, I can then make a choice. Yes, 30, 40 years, I may have done part of the rat race, gone about a certain template. Now I can choose my own template. Right. So if, let's say, I am a person who values human connection, maybe I'm in the wrong job or I'm in the wrong organization or I'm in the wrong culture. So you can make those choices. You don't have to, accept anything that's given to you. Life is to be, life is a buffet, right? You pick and choose what you want. So I think purpose helps with that alignment. So congruence, being in inner touch with yourself. Part of that is really articulating and being able to identify your purpose. Right. And that kind of brings in greater alignment. The third thing I want to talk about, which I think is, absolutely there for everybody to see in the post-pandemic world, is, and you may understand this, Shripriya, the coaching mindset, right? Which is all about being, open, curious, flexible, and agile. These are amazing traits and characteristics for leaders to develop and work on.
Correct.
Because today's world is absolutely unpredictable. So instead of trying to bring back predictability, which is never going to happen, you may as well thrive through that, right? Learn to pivot and navigate better around, I would say, volatility and, all of that. So for which you need to be very agile and curious, right? Even a problem can be looked at saying, instead of saying, hey, this is a problem, flip it around and say, so can I learn something out of this? So I think all of these things, will definitely help us be far more effective and balanced as leaders and also as human beings, Shripriya.
Absolutely. I mean, very well said, Vijay, calling out these 4 or 5 very critical elements. They're very, I think, very important. But one thing that comes, that came to me is when you said purpose. A lot of people, they want to have a purpose, but they don't know how to, what is my purpose? And sometimes that's a, as a coach, when you ask people, why were you born in this world? What's your purpose? And people say that, look, I don't know. I mean, that's also an answer that we often get. I don't know is something that people have not deeply explored on what their purpose is. So how should people really understand their purpose and go through it and really have a enriching and fulfilling life? What would you suggest as a way for people to say, hey, find a way to find out their purpose?
And I think that's a very practical question you've asked, and it often happens, right? And I think it's a journey. It's not that you wake up one fine day and say, hey, this is my purpose. I also think, which is why I said I called it out second, once you start understanding yourself, right? Understanding, who you have been, what have your experiences been, what lights you up, what sort of, what will get you jump out of your bed day or night, rain or shine, and still get you going. Now, these are all, I would say, rules of thumb to go towards that exploration. But it takes time, Shripriya. Sometimes it takes time, and which is why, sometimes in coaching, all we work on for months together is to figure out what's my life purpose, and therefore what should my work purpose be. Right. So I'm not sort of saying, not giving you a confusing answer, but it is a journey, this whole process of discovery. And also, I think one of the things that often helps people is this question saying, when it's time for you to go, what do you really want to look back and be happy about? Or what do you want the world to know you for? And sometimes we say legacy, right? But, some people may not want to leave a legacy, but at least you may want to, every one of us, I believe, would like to go with no regrets, right? So I think enabling somebody to understand what is it that I would regret really helps you get closer to purpose. Because then you say, if after doing all of this wealth, all of this success, all of this, social status and everything, if I still don't have A, B, and C, that would make me feel very, very poor. There goes, your purpose is somewhere there in that direction, because having everything, you're still craving for that one thing. So I think that helps. I certainly think it helps to have, a trusted friend or, a partner who can, may or may not be a coach, but somebody, it's always good to, I think, have these purpose conversations or work this out with somebody who can be that mirror for you, right? Because sometimes it is like accepting, also the dark parts of yourself and accepting who you are, right? And being vulnerable. It's difficult to do it with your own self. And I have had beautiful conversations, Shripriya, not necessarily in a coaching space, with others who have helped me come out saying that, okay, this is maybe what I was born for.
Correct.
right? And this is where I need to be. This is the stage I need to be on and shine.
Correct.
It's always those deeper conversations that have helped me, but also I need to be in touch with myself to figure that out.
Correct. I mean, when you are ready within, right, you'll have the right kind of, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But are you catching? I mean, people come, that's why they say you got to be tapping into your intuitive space every time, right? To know even whom to have this conversation.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
they're just there in front of you and you don't even see it.
Absolutely.
I should say this has been fantastic, Vijay. I mean, thanks for taking the time and sharing your perspectives. This has been a very rich conversation, I should say. Thank you. And I look forward to staying connected with you, and all the very best to you, Vijay.
Thank you so much, Priya.